Welcome to Devon Dragon Radio. I'm your host, M.L.Ruscsak. I'm here with special guest and author, Topher Chambers. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
Now, okay, you have a lot of things going on. You're an author, you're an archaeologist, if I pronounce it correctly. If anyone follows the show, you know I'm the queen of butchering something throughout the show. Archaeologist, filmmaker, producer, and podcaster. So what came first?
The archaeologist. I started doing that in 2006 after school, and things just kind of happened.
What time period are you generally looking for when you go on a dig?
Back then I was a contract archaeologist, so it would be anything. So we would look for her, any sign of historical stuff, native occupation stuff, prehistoric Indian stuff. It's
basically anything and everything more than 100 years old.
Yeah, anything that had shown cultural significance to the area.
Awesome. So did any of that lead into anything else that you're currently working
on? Kind of. Actually, the book that we're talking about, some of the stories actually started. I started writing back then while I was on the road 14 days at a time, and like home for 2, and then back on the road for another 14 days by myself a lot of the time. So I just, sitting alone in a hotel room, just started scribbling stuff down.
Well, that's a great way to make a horror anthology, right? Just
right.
You're by yourself, you have nothing else to do, so you start writing.
Yeah, it was either that or go to the bar. So I wrote a lot.
Well, that's always a better choice anyways, because writing, as we all know, can lead into an income where going to the bar and getting drunk just depletes your wallet.
Yes.
Unless, of course, you are really good at beer pong and then you make money from it somehow.
I guess it kind of worked for Hemingway, so I don't know.
So we heard. So you have this horror book out. It's a collection of short stories, as you just said, writing throughout while you're an archaeologist. What is your favorite story of that anthology?
The one that actually spun off and ended up becoming the framework in which what we set the movie in. Mm-hmm. This it's called The Odd Old Book. I wrote it when my uncle passed away, and he left me all of his giant book collection. And I'm talking like 4,000 or 5,000 books. And one of them I actually have sitting right here is the whole inspiration for the movie The Black Book and all that. It's a beautiful bound book that is completely empty.
Wonderful.
So I sat down, and while I was just staring at the book, a story came to my head about somebody, whose uncle passes him the book, and he ends up delving into the book and trying to find it out, and ends up going missing.
Oh, wonderful. So one, we have a blank page book that, we don't have fine binding like that. So it's old. It's over 30 years old.
Yeah.
So, and that doesn't seem like old when you're looking at my age, but at the same time, anything over 30 in book years, that's amazing.
And like I said, it's a perfectly bound, old school, like everything is perfect on it. There is it's literally no text whatsoever. There's not even a sign that somebody even tried to do anything with it, which, like I said, it sparked a whole
and
story.
Probably whoever made that book is making so much money off of a blank book.
Right. Well, I can't find anything else about it either. You couldn't find anything on the internet about it. I couldn't find any even hint that other people had found similar books. Like this is a complete one of a kind, I guess. The title on the cover doesn't show up anywhere.
Wow. You have a real mystery there, which makes for a great book to
yes
to make any of the ways. You know, you don't hear about, you find this blank book that you obviously had and something else is going on with the book. There's so many stories that can be made. So to have your story out there on this is 1 in a million.
Yeah, so like I said, that story spun us into the framework for the series, or for the movie. We have a comic book coming out. We have all of this stuff because the framework was so loose. All it takes is for somebody to pick it up and it becomes a whole new story. So it's the book travels and each new story gets added to the book. So it
that sounds like it's going to be a wonderful movie when it comes out. Now, are you in pre-production, post-production?
Oh no, it's out. It was released in October.
Okay.
It is on Amazon Prime and on Tubi. You can also pick it up on YouTube Movies for buy or rent, and you can also get it on the Google Play Store for buy or rent.
Now, that movie, what is the name of it?
The Black Book.
Okay, so it's all nice and neat and out there. But okay, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself because one, I love my horror stories. I love my mysteries, and you have two things going on with right now is the book and the mystery. So I'm now like, okay, I need to watch it because now I'm intrigued.
So with the movie, like I said, I adapted the audio book into the framework of the movie, and then each of the stories that we had used from the book, which we didn't use them all, but we used quite a few, are quote unquote like little chapters that the person is sitting down to read, and then there's a little twist at the end.
Of course, there's a twist. You have to twist. You can't be A to Z book. You have to have twists and turns and mystery and intrigue throughout the entire story.
And so we've been promoting it as it's a cursed book. Even when we sell the book at conventions and whatnot, it's funny. One of my partners, Chris Maker, came up with the pitch, "Don't read the book." And he goes through this whole big spiel about how it's a cursed book and it'll suck you in and make you part of the story and all this other stuff. And that's sold more books at conventions than anything that I've seen. Like we have other authors coming to us going like, how everybody's over here. And I'm like, I hired an introvert or an extrovert, and he's just really good at coming up with stuff on the fly. So,
oh, that's wonderful. You have to have those bubbly personalities that come up with these great marketing strategies for a book that's cursed.
Yes.
How else do you say it?
It's funny. Like we patterned the whole marketing thing after the whole thing. He's like, we made the movie so you don't have to read the book. You can buy the book, but you have to sign this waiver that says that we're not responsible for anything that happens to you when you take it home and read it.
Oh, that's awesome. I have not heard anyone ever doing that.
It was really, really fun. When he first did that, I was like, that's it. This is our pitch right here.
That is a great pitch. As a publisher, as an author, that is a great pitch. I've heard so many different things. Oh, this is a cursed story. This is about a cursed whatever. Now you actually have to sign a waiver to buy the book.
Yes. And that's sold a whole lot of books, a whole lot of movies. And hopefully, we got the comic book coming out with all new stories from the Black Book, and hopefully that pitch may extend to that. I'm not sure.
Oh, it should. If you have to sign a waiver for the book, I imagine you have to sign a waiver for the comic book.
There you go.
So we have this going on. Are you working on something else or in addition to the Black Book?
I am. We're getting ready to release Letters from Marshalltown, which is another anthology series about all of the stuff that has happened in this small backwater Indiana town from like over the ages, like all the weird stuff. It's kind of in the vein of like Derry, Maine, where it's not a very lucky town. Like all of this stuff has happened in the past, and supernatural to like weather related stuff to, you know, all of
Oh,
this stuff
right. You have to have the
comes in.
random twister or tornado, or just
Yeah.
no warning, just plop down. Then you have the supernatural, a ghost or something going on. There's a lot of things you can play with the backwater towns.
Yeah, and the fact that, I mean, they're a bunch of separate stories, but they exist in the same space in different time periods. So you can have, like, we literally have a character who is the sheriff in one story, but the next story, it happens in 83, so he's a deputy just starting out, and you see some of the stuff from him as being a deputy, and then you totally separate story, totally whatever, but you're seeing the same people pop up in all of these different stories and different locations that we mapped out. Once I started writing the stories, and my partner Chris Maker, he wanted to help, so he wrote the first story that kind of kicked us all off, and we actually have a map of the town now, of like, here's where the high school is, here's where this is, here's where this is, and then we just kind of fit our stories into the framework and make it more alive.
That's what I was going to ask, if there is a map, because I love when you have an anthology like that, to have a map of where you're going, where things are. Now you have little hidden clues that you can put in the map of, hey, something always happens at this location, or this area of the town is more supernaturally imposed upon versus this top part.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's really interesting to, when we first started talking about the subject, you know, I was like, what about if we narrow the focus? Because with the Black Book, it was narrowed down to people who read the book and getting what they deserve. So, you know, in the end, they get sucked in, you become part of the book, and they get what they deserve. Which is why we're playing with that convention in the comic book, with an innocent girl coming and reading the book, and seeing what happens with her when, you know, all of the other people were like bad people. She's not. So what happens with her? So we're playing with that convention. This convention, I wanted to narrow it down even further. I was like, okay, what about this geographic region here? And we started putting things together, and like, we got the radio station was the first thing, you know, the next story came out, dealt with the high school, and that's when you found out that the sheriff in one of the other movies, his dad was the principal of the high school for the longest time, and, you know, so like everything mismatches together and into this one overreaching story of like the history of this small little town. That's just why we called it Letters from Marshalltown. It's basically almost set like a small town historical society is collecting these things about their
I get it.
their city.
Really, yeah, you go into, how many of us have went into our town's historical society and actually looked at where the town was created to where it's at now? Not a lot of people do this. And this, I remember going down to Morgantown, West Virginia, and they had a wonderful historical society that had all the archaeological meaningful things from the Native Americans till the time it burned down. So actually, was able to see it before it was gone. But at the same time, you see all these little things that were involved. You have this string of theme, or how this family was the prominent person here and now they're the lowest of the low now. What happened, between the two? You have these, is it a supernatural? Are they just unlucky? Or is there another form going on?
Yeah, and that's the framework. You don't know, it's tracking. One of the side effects of setting it up like that was you can literally track some of these characters through the story and get to know their story through all of these other stories that they were a part of. You can kind of track them through, and with 13-14 stories going into that one, I think there's going to be, if you look through the thing, you can actually track like 5 or 6 different characters and learn their stories through those stories. So it becomes another set of stories that you can read in the book.
It's okay. It's not confusing if you understand that framework. It's very confusing when you're trying to explain it.
Yes, it is. Trying to come up with the idea that like, okay, we're telling these stories, but we're also telling other stories set inside of those stories and whatnot. It gets a lot of layers.
It's like involved. Taking the TV show Supernatural and having it the framework of Supernatural, the TV show, and having it go into another TV show. That's kinda. Basically, that's how you framework your book.
Yeah. And then the one we got coming after that, we have another book that's in the pipe. We haven't started writing anything for it. We haven't got anything, but we're starting to set the framework, and we're narrowing the focus even further. Instead of one town and in a backwater county, we are taking a look at one, like a carnival that comes to this town, and all of the stories that happen inside that carnival is the setup for the next.
Now, is that carnival going to be a horror story, a mystery, or what are you thinking with that?
A little bit of all of it. There is going to be some horror aspects to it, and there's going to be some mystery aspects to it. Nobody's knows, like, the town or the carnival just appeared like overnight out of a mist.
Oh,
like they came into town on a big foggy night, and next thing you know, people wake up and out in the big field there's a whole carnival. And like the stories of people going in and encountering stuff in the carnival, stuff that happens around the carnival, things that happen outside of the carnival that track back to it being there and whatnot. Like all of that kind of mixes together into one big story of the carnival itself.
Now, your publisher must love your stories.
For the most part, I get a lot of like, okay, what do you got now?
No, they should go, okay, what is the marketing strategy on this book? And it shouldn't be what do you have now? It should be, okay, how do I market this? Because obviously I'm going to have to put a disclaimer if I'm going to sell it online.
Well, like I said, with the Marshalltown book, with the Black Book, it was the marketing
genius.
Yeah, Chris came and swung for the fences with that one. But we've been talking about how to do the letters for Marshalltown, and we can't do the same thing over again. So we got to come up with.
No, because it's not cursed. It's not a cursed book. It's
right. It's a book about a cursed town.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't go to a curse, taking a thing of a curse book and having it's not the same. So you have to come up with a marketing plan for that. And even I'm sitting here, I'm like, how do you market a cursed town. Well, you can't visit the town because it's a fictional town.
Right. Well, the great thing is you can do like tourism board posters. Like come visit sunny Marshalltown, and then having like creepy stuff in the poster.
I see this as a wonderful TV show or movie or something like that, and I can see how the movie posters would work with that, but it has to coincide.
In fact, we are starting production on an adaptation using the same framework, same town, same all of that of our next movie based in Marshalltown. We actually start filming that at the end of April.
Awesome.
So
is there, without giving away too much of the movie or where you're located at, is there any familiar faces that we know will be in the film?
None that we can talk about right now. We will make the announcement the moment we can ink the deals. There's a lot of people who are interested in being a part of it. There's a lot of people, like we had Ari Lehman in the last one, and he was the kid in Friday the 13th that played, Jason at the very first one when it come out of the water. That was him. And he's done tons and tons of horror movies his entire career. So we got him in the last one. We're trying for some bigger names in this one. They are all for it. They like the story. They like the setup and the punchlines and all of that stuff. So we're just trying to
get it
finish what we can so we can ink the deal and make those announcements more officially.
Of course. I mean, that's why I said without giving away, because I know with film, there's a lot of things you can and cannot say before everything's in place.
Yeah. But let's just say the people that we're talking to are pretty big in the horror movie genre.
We can say that.
Yeah.
That's nice and legalese, and you can't really, there's a lot of people in that genre that you can fill in the blanks with.
Yes. And we're trying to work with almost every single one of them.
But that's awesome though. That is perfectly awesome. So, okay, we have Black Book on Amazon. We have it on, Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
You have
the books on Amazon and the movies on Amazon Prime, the movies on Tubi and all of the other, Google Play and YouTube movies. The book is also available in Barnes and Noble. All you have to do is search the Black Book, Topher Chambers, and it'll pop up.
Yeah, there's a lot of links there. If you just put it into Topher Chambers on any Google search, it'll also come up that way. That's what I was trying to play around with before this interview, so I could have.
I have a lot of links on the internet.
But links are good because that gives you 8 ways that people can connect with you.
Oh yeah.
Ways that where actors can connect with you, or producers, or other people that want to be a part of the film. You have your readers that want to connect with you to find out what else is going on.
That was something that was new for me. Like when we started doing conventions with this book, the people who come up and, I was just doing whatever. And my buddy was like, hey, would you like him to sign it? And they were like, oh, really? And like the level of excitement and people like shaking your hand, like I've never shook the hand of somebody who, like of an author before, and all of this stuff. It was new and made kind of uncomfortable, but it still was pretty good to have people, acknowledge that, especially like they would read some stuff over the night and then come back the next day and like, oh, I love it when in this story you did this. And it was interesting, but it was nice.
Yes, I understand completely. My first book signing was the same way. Oh, you want me to sign it? Oh, I'm not just here to hand you the book.
Right. Right. It's like, I'm not, I'm just in the selling mind frame. And then, so like now we're on our we're setting the schedule again for this year.
Well, wait till you're like at dinner and you're not expecting anything, and someone comes out of the back, then they find out you're there and they have to give you a hug. That has happened to me, and it was the most crazy night I've ever had.
So that's awesome, but I'm trying to eat. So that happened at a convention. I was sitting down in the thing, and somebody had bought like the whole package. They bought all of they bought movies and posters and all of this stuff. And they had me sign all of it. And I was in the dining area of the convention center, and I was just grabbing something to eat. And like, I had slowly this group form around the table, and they were like, started off like talking, do whatever, and like slowly moving over. And then like, I looked up, and all of these people were just like looking at me, and I was like, oh, hi.
Yeah, it's the craziest thing when that happens, because you're just trying to eat your meal.
Right.
Just be with your family or have a meal, or, you know, something that's completely human and normal. But it's okay to talk to us when we're at the convention in
right. Especially when it's like the dead times and like, you know, the lulls between surges that go through. You know, it's like, okay, now I could have somebody sit here and talk, and while we restock the things, you know. But it definitely is a new thing. That's why I hired the extrovert. Tend to be a little introverted in public. So like, you go talk.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I usually have my PA who's the little introvert, and she'll go around and go, here's a business card, here's business cards, there, go over that to booth number, whatever booth it is, go there, go talk about dragons and fairies. And
yes,
you know, that
it's nice to send them out, and you can just kind of sit back and go, okay.
Yeah, that's a whole point of taking someone with you to these conventions.
Yeah, we have grown to having an entire staff. The Rutledge Productions, our partners with the movie side of things, they've been really good about getting us into horror conventions. We've been anywhere from Kentucky to Chicago, and we just keep getting new people interested in the story and the framework and where it's going to go.
Georgia, New York, and California are really big on the conventions for horror.
And we're working our way up. We are Indiana based.
Okay.
So we're trying to hit as spread out as far as we can. I know Atlanta was talked about as one of the places with the like Days of the Dead convention.
Yeah, Atlanta is really big on their horror and their horror conventions. So it is Louisiana. If you get down to
I used to live there.
I have a lot of friends down there. They actually, the one friend has a Hunter's House extraction thing that he created and is open all year, but he does a lot of horror author signings at the Haunted House, but they also have the conventions there. So it's just where is your niche, and your niche is the entire US.
Yeah. We've actually started picking up with being on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. We started picking up people who are traveling from outside the country to come. When you like why did you choose Chicago's Days of the Dead to whatever? Like, well, we were over here, we saw this convention, and we figured we might as well just spend the day, make it, since we're moving our way west. And so it was neat to see back when travel was normal. Easier to see stuff, like Australia and all of those people from different places, and talking to them is like, the stories of how they got there is interesting.
Australia has a lot of good horror things that go on there. India, You wouldn't think it, but they do have horror conventions.
Well, Australia, you would think it because everything there is trying to kill you anyway. So, I mean,
even if it's cute and cuddly, it's still trying to kill you.
right? It's like, oh, don't let that bite you. Why? Because they eat this all day and it's poisonous. Okay.
Yeah, don't get scratched by that claws because the claws are poisonous. But the rest of
everything's poisonous.
Yeah,
it's just the whole land is poisonous, and
yeah, but you can pet it, just don't let it scratch you.
Right.
So yeah, Australia's like that. I have a lot of good friends down there, and it's like, oh, don't do that because it's poisonous. So it's
like okay, when you take your shoes off, it's worse than the American Southwest, where you take your shoes off, you have to like pat them out and make sure there's nothing in it when you go to put them back on. Like there, you have to make sure that nothing else is wearing your shoes, because you come across and like have a kangaroo or a koala bear, like now this is their shoe. And
yeah, the koalas are good at stealing your belongings, so you have to make sure it's still there when you take it off. So are they are kangaroos, and there's a few other animals that are great for stealing tourist things, especially.
Well, you talk about India, like the monkeys in some of those places would come through and like they expect you to give them food. If you don't, then they run up and they'll hit you with stuff saying like, give me food.
Yeah, they expect it. So you have monkeys now following you. And you can make a whole lot of different jokes and things about it, but this is a culture of the animals, so
yeah,
it's okay. But where can our listeners and our viewers find you? And I mean, you have, I'm sure, a direct link to you.
Yeah, topherchambers.com is my website. That has a list of like my filmography, where I'm going to be, the podcast that I do, as well as the internet-based radio station that I founded in 2010. All of that and more. So you can get links to like everything that I do from that.
Awesome. I love when everything is one place because it makes so much easier to find you.
I say I have a lot of places that have all of the information in it because I never know who's searching what to get to me, so or to get to the project. So it's like, okay, if you go to this page, you'll still find all that information. So
exactly, you have your IMDb if you want to get the films, you have the radio show, you put in this, you have, yeah, I get it. I mean, our lives overlap in a lot of areas, so I get having 20,000 links and just going, okay, I'm gonna have a website and it's gonna have all the links there.
I do want to, before we get I do have some on the Black Book. I have some co-authors that came in. I brought them in because we were moving into the movie, and like, well, let's have you write a story and then we'll adapt the story and do all that. So I wanted to thank like Angela Hill, Stuart Wahlin, Joe Herbert. Those guys were fantastic and helped me get past being the guy who just submits stories to magazines and whatnot to actually having a book.
Well, we always love those friends that help us get from A to the Z.
But I just didn't want to like be the glory hound. I wrote a lot of the book, but like bits and pieces came in and fleshed it out and made it longer.
That is the point of anthologies, to find co-authors so you can get all the little niche pieces put together.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for being on the show. It was wonderful talking to you.
Well, thank you for having me, and we'll see you on the circuit.
Awesome. And for all of our listeners and our viewers, happy reading.